Hey everybody, it's your favorite gentleman, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. Today we have a very special guest. I'm looking forward to this interview. We're going to talk about some things that are important to not only him, but to us, to we, and how we can do better business and how we can get to the nitty-gritty and encourage others in thriving in business and what fuels you. You won't want to miss 1 second of this powerhouse speaker and this man who's coming to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage. This is going to be a dynamic episode. Stay tuned, stay with us. You won't want to miss 1 second of this great leader. Here we go. Welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. If you're tuning in, we have the incredible John Meese coming to the stage. This man is an economist-turned-entrepreneur on a personal mission to eradicate generational poverty by helping entrepreneurs create thriving businesses, which is why he wrote the #1 bestseller, Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business in any economy, not just last year's economy, not 2008's economy, any economy, including this one. This CEO is profound and changing lives and changing businesses. And the biggest thing we hear about often is impact and pivot. What's the pivot? And so here, help me welcome to the Gentleman Style Podcast stage, Mr. John Meese.
Thank you so much, Marcus, for the great introduction and the welcome. I'm glad to be here. It's a joy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us, and it's a pleasure to have such a powerhouse speaker. So what you are doing is phenomenal, and it is necessary. We need it. 2020 was a dumpster fire. It was a terrible year, and what people don't understand is that there was a pivot, there was a shift happening in the economy, and many businesses lost their shirts. But you speak to this. That's why you wrote the book.
Yep.
And we're going to talk about that book today on the Gentleman Style Podcast Show. But I want to dig into a little bit of your story. What inspired you? What happened? There's always a backstory. What inspired this great book?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I mean, I've written, like, I have a blog and I have a podcast called Thrive School, and so I've written and created content of different kinds for quite a while, in terms of, for not quite a decade, but close to it. And so I knew like a book was coming, but I'd already actually written the first couple chapters of a book, because I wasn't sure what to do with it. And then this little thing called COVID-19 showed up, and everyone all over the world freaked out and shut everything down. I mean, just, it seems kind of normal now, which is kind of weird, but at the time it was really just dramatic to the entire world to just like, turn everything off and turn it back on again, which is kind of like a reference that I make in the book to how IT professionals approach fixing the problem. Turn it off and turn it back on again. And I had just opened my first brick and mortar business. So I actually right now have, I'm sitting right now inside of Cowork.Inc. And this is, Cowork.Inc. is an entrepreneur support organization that I created, but we have physical co-working spaces, and we opened our first physical co-working space. We also have training and things like that. But I opened my first physical co-working space in January 15th, 2020, 58 days before lockdown, before we were closed by executive order. So like everyone else, I was kind of stuck going like, well, what do we do with this? And some people that's when, you may remember, some people chose that time to binge Tiger King. Some people learned how to make sourdough bread. And I locked myself in a room and I wrote a book. So that's a fun surprise. So I wrote this book, and what I actually started by, I wrote the first draft of just saying, like, really looking around at all the business owners that were struggling to figure out how to respond, and recognize that I had a unique story and experience that I could share. And so I wrote a first draft of it, but then I didn't want this just to be John Meese's way to build a business, right? I wanted this to be bigger and better than that. And so then what I did was I actually interviewed a few dozen of my mentors. I mean, some of the best and brightest minds in business, people like Michael Hyatt, Ray Edwards, Pat Flynn, Philip Stutz, Casey Graham, Rabbi Daniel Lapin, many others. And I interviewed all these, people about not only what they were doing in their own businesses to adjust, but also what things were still working. I mean, some of these people were entrepreneurs who've worked through 3 economic crises in a row. And so finding out, okay, well, what's the pattern of what works no matter what's going on? Now, I have an academic background as an economist. That's where I earned these nerd glasses. And that's also where I worked for an economics research lab straight out of college. So I was able to leverage my academic side to then study, okay, what's changing in the economy overall. So I was able to take my personal experience. I've built 3 profitable businesses from scratch. And then I was able to look at my academic experience as an economist and my also my experience, just like not even my experience, but actually people who are much older and more experienced and wiser than me, just distilling what are the common themes and what they're saying. And that's where this book comes from. So early reviewers have called this a weekend MBA, which is, I think, is a great description of it. But my goal was just for it to have a playbook. So no matter your background, no matter your age, ethnicity, what access to financial capital you have, or anything like that, if you want to either build or rebuild a profitable business, a successful business, you want to both survive and thrive, this book's your playbook. It's a how-to book on how to do that. And so it's very step-by-step. It's very, very simple. And that's what inspired me to write the book.
John Meese, y'all. So you unpacked a lot. I wanna unpack some of that a little bit, right?
Sure.
So and that's huge, because in the age of information, the everyone is you have no excuse, right? Everyone wants to say, well, I didn't know, or I didn't have the right mentor, or I didn't have the right strategy. We want to blame COVID-19, right? That's very easy to do. But when you have experts like yourself who are observing the trends and watching the trends and shifting with the economy. So one of the unique things that came out of the pandemic is now everyone went virtual. But that's not new information, right? And that's not new information. So I want to ask you, do you believe the age of information is over? And what does that practically mean in a common sense?
Okay, good. I'm glad you asked this question, because when you started to say in this age of information, I thought, well, it's kind of awkward because I'm about to tell you the age of information is over. And first, let me back up a little bit and say that this is kind of a big thing to say. It's a very bold claim to make, because you imagine at one point in time in the world, there was the Stone Age, right? And in the Stone Age, if you owned, a piece of wood with a stone, kind of like curved blade attached to it, tied with some sinew from an animal that you killed, then that was state of the art. That was technology. That was the best technology at the time in the Stone Age. And sure, it wasn't very sharp. You had to replace the stone head all the time when it cracked, but that was just considered, that's just the way things are done. And then somebody figured out how to melt down and reshape bronze, and we as humanity entered the Bronze Age. Now, of course, that didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual shift that took place all over the planet and over time. But if your business as a, woodcutter or whatever it might be, was dependent upon, you was built on this old technology, you were out of date, you were relevant. And so I think it's really crucial to pay attention to the ages as humans shift from age to age of what's state of the art, what's relevant and what's not. So the age of information was all about getting how we had all of a sudden, as humanity, unprecedented access to information all over the world. And so for example, like with the dawn of computers and internet and technology, then all of a sudden you had alongside with that, the fact that before, information was stuck with gatekeepers. It might have been a professor or a school, a university, a big company, but information sat on someone's desk somewhere in a file cabinet. And some of it wasn't even malicious. It was just like, that's just where it was. You didn't have access to it because you weren't in the room. And that was just considered normal. And with the advent of technology and computers and internet, then all of a sudden it became, well, no, actually the average everyday person can have access to all the information in the world, anything and everything. You can learn anything about everything that you want to know online. That was pretty cool at first, until people started realizing that was kind of overwhelming. I mean, and so the last 5 to 10 years of the age of information, most of our energy has been spent ignoring information. I think it was Bloomberg that did an assessment that found the average consumer sees about 10,000 advertisements a day between email newsletters, social media ads, billboards, all that kind of stuff. And so with that in mind, then the question becomes, okay, what do you do with that? You ignore things. You do things like, hide your smartphone or, disconnect from the internet and things like that. Well, the shift started to happen as we went into the age of insight. And that's what we're going into today. I'm not alone in this and saying this. The World Economic Forum was actually the first group to announce this last year and say the age of information is over. We're entering the age of insight. I've simply said, you know what, you're right, and talked about that. But the age of insight is characterized by the fact that everyday people are looking for guides to interpret information. So whereas there's this like massive information out there, like think about your physical health, for example. You could go online and read 10,000 articles right now that you have access to on all the latest science and research on how to improve your physical health. But that's overwhelming, and it would take a massive amount of time and energy, and ultimately you wouldn't really know what's true or what's most important. What you need is a trusted guide who has experience and wisdom in that industry, who can then filter all of that and tell you, here's the 3 things you need to do to take care of your physical health. And so all of us as people on the planet are looking for our guides. We want a guide for our physical health, for our relationships, for our financial health, for our spiritual health. We crave this. We crave leadership. And so because of that, that also practically means as a business owner or as an entrepreneur or as a content creator, you need to make sure that you're positioned not as the gatekeeper to information, but as the guide who's curating information and filtering that to give people access to insight, because insight is information that's been filtered through the lens of experience and wisdom.
This man is a genius. Did y'all see that? Did y'all see how the way he just dissected that and broke that down and just really just scalpel, scissors, knives, and just dug in there? And that's huge, right? And you're right. You see him all the time. You see all these pop-up thought process that are coming, and people are seeking information. We're not just completely ignorant to it, but we're seeking information. But we want it's massive amounts of data. It's massive amounts of information, and those experts who can filter through it, sort it all down, and compile it into a more focused approach. That's where you see the growth, and that's where you see success in business. Did I understand that correctly?
That's exactly right. And then if I could say there's one other economic shift that happened at the same time. Can I comment on that real quick?
You can.
Okay, so of course, like if you ever took Economics 101, you may remember that there's like this little graph that economists will show you of like, what is a market? Well, it's a mix of supply and demand. And that's sort of like Economics 101, right? Market is made up of supply and demand. Only now, like I asked a friend of mine who owns a coffee roasting company, and they roast coffee beans for a lot of restaurants and coffee shops in Middle Tennessee, where I live. They're the second largest coffee roaster company in Tennessee. And I asked him, I said, what is the most amount of coffee that you could roast this year? Like, what's your supply constraint? And he started doing some math, and he's like, you know what? Okay, I think we could roast about 50,000 pounds of coffee. And I said, okay, could you do more? He said, well, I mean, yeah, we'd have to, get a bigger machine. I might have to get a different supplier. But the point there is the fact that supply has become kind of a non-factor. Now, of course, right now as we're talking, that's not exactly true because there's been huge supply chain problems with things getting out of stock all over the place. But that's temporary. That's temporary. That's really just because of like COVID restrictions and, global political, mumbo jumbo that's kind of gummed up the works for the minute. But overall, if I want to sell you, how many copies of my book can I sell? As many as I want. Like supply is not a factor, right? I can print more copies of it. I mean, I don't print them obviously, but somebody could print them somewhere. But we could, pretty much infinitely produce books. Talk about podcast episodes. Marcus, how many times can you, how many copies of this podcast episode can you publish? Like how many people can download this podcast episode?
Limitless.
So supply is kind of a non-factor. And what that means is that we've moved into what some economists call the attention economy, where that really the only thing that matters is, do you have people's attention? Because if you can own demand, that's the only part of the supply and demand equation that really matters right now.
Love it. Yes. I've been dying to get an economist on the show, and this is why.
Well, there's some economists that are less entertaining, unless you are an economist. But thank you.
No, you got the spunk, y'all. He is entertaining, and we have one quick commercial break. You guys don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Good day, podcast listeners. This is your boy, Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show. I wanted to let you guys know that we will be rolling out a new feature and adding a join sponsor button next to the subscriber button here at the bottom of your screen. Once you click the button, it will display 3 membership levels. Gentleman Gentry, which is our entry level. Duke Duchess, which is our season level. And the Emperor and Empress, which is our most sophisticated level, which you will receive unique perks and benefits at each differing level and gain access to our community tab. We will also be sharing polls, upcoming events, and interviews, as well as receive feedback from our sponsors directly. Your support helps me find new, an exciting guest to bring to the stage live. Well, in order to get the higher end speakers, it requires, you guessed it, money. So thank you for tuning in to my channel. And if becoming a sponsor sounds good to you, then select the join button below and choose your desired sponsor level. Let's continue to grow and serve the future of generations of men and women to come. Love you guys. Bye. We are back. Welcome to Gentleman Style Podcast Show. If you're just tuning in to the Gentleman Style Podcast Show, we have John Meese, and he is spilling the tea on his book and how to survive and thrive in any economy. That includes this one. That includes COVID-19. That includes the dot-com crash. That includes real estate crash, or whatever you can expect.
Yep.
How to survive in any economy. He literally wrote the book on
It's right here.
how to survive and thrive in any economy. And if you missed that, if you're scrolling and you're just scrolling, you got nothing to do, this is the show to be. This is the place to be. This man is powerful. And I want to address the audience member in the room. We have a VIP sponsor. Thank you, Miss Erica, for your sponsorship. These sponsorships help us grow and thrive the channel and create what you see today. So we appreciate you. We thank you for your support. And we have a question from our VIP sponsor of the show, Miss Erica. She asked, what 3 businesses did you start at one time, and how did you balance them all as a serial entrepreneur?
Sure. So yeah, I am a serial entrepreneur, but not like Fruit Loops, not like that kind of cereal, but like like multiple businesses. Thank you. So first of all, I didn't start them all at one time. I need to clarify that. And I also should say, don't try this at home. I don't recommend having multiple businesses. If you can do anything to avoid having multiple businesses, you'll be more focused and more effective. I kind of, along the way, as I made different strategic choices, accumulated 3 different businesses. One of them, my core company, that started for me, I was blogging, I was podcasting, I started creating online courses. That company is called Meese technically, but you would never see that, except for maybe on an invoice. It's just johnmeese.com. And so that's the hub of, my writing, my books. So I've got books. In the past, I had online courses. I did a lot of consulting. So I was a fractional chief marketing officer for several different companies, where I would come in and, essentially help be on their executive team on a part-time basis, so that they weren't at the point yet to afford a full-time executive team, but they needed that high-level strategy. So that's something that I did that really, paid the bills for a long time. But along the way, I also partnered with a friend of mine who I connected with online named Thomas McGee, and we co-founded a company called Notable. Now, you can learn about that at notable.press if you're curious. But that is a company where we create a content creation platform for creators, like you, Marcus, and like many other people who create, content in a podcast, YouTube channel, blog posts, all that kind of stuff. And so we've got a content creation platform that you own and control. So you can leverage other platforms like YouTube, but still have a home and a hub where you call the shots, where you can have a paid membership, much like, like Marcus mentioned a minute ago, that he's got these membership options. That's built into our platform. So it's a software package essentially that's built on WordPress. So it allows you to be completely independent. So no one can shut you down if for some reason they don't like what you say. Keeps your independence, but also allows you to control your access to your audience. And then the third company is Cowork.Inc, which I mentioned earlier. We have, we're moving into right now, we're relocating this co-working space into a larger facility and working on our second co-working space. But Cowork.Inc is increasingly becoming where I spend all my time, because that's where our focus is, helping entrepreneurs create thriving businesses. And so that's where we focus on, both training, working with local business owners, but also online training. And then, there's more books coming down the pipeline. And then I've got a podcast and newsletter called Thrive School as well. So how do I balance that? Constraints. Really strong boundaries around what is work time. I have 3 beautiful young children, all boys. I have a 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. I'm also married to my best friend, the love of my life. And her and I like to spend a lot of time together too. So I schedule about 30 hours of work a week. Now, I probably work like a little bit over that, like 35 to 40, but usually people are scheduling 40 hours a week and then letting that kind of bleed into 50 or 60 hours. And so I just keep constraints on it, which means every day when I go to work, I use a tool called Sunsama that has me map out how I'm going to spend every minute of the day, of my work day at least. And when I do that, I have to make hard choices. What am I going to focus on that's going to drive results? And what's going to have to wait for another day, or what's going to have to be delegated or outsourced to someone else? And so just honestly, that the biggest thing I do is just keep those boundaries firm, have really hard constraints on it. And it kind of forces me to innovate every day on how I spend my time.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I hope that answered your question, Miss Holmes. That is very diverse, and he's using tools, right? He's just using tools. He's not relying on just, his memory. He's using all the sources and their attention, and he has a lot going on. Again, a family, a wife, businesses all over the place. So he's leveraging his team, his staff, and the use of apps. So great point. Love that. Mr. Meese, in your book, you teach that businesses simply need to create a real solution to real world problems for real people. And that sounds so simple, right? It's like, duh, that's obvious, right? But can you expound on this thought process and what people can expect when they get the book?
Yes. Yeah, I'm glad it seems obvious. That's actually what I want. I want that to be obvious. But the reason why I say business is built on creating real solutions to real problems for real people, the reason why I said the word real in there 3 times is because so many entrepreneurs will forget this. It may seem obvious, but then it gets kind of overlooked. And so you look at, there's so many companies that become so focused about their products, right? And so they're saying like, we exist to sell this product or this service. And they forget that product or service is really just today's version of your solution to a problem. And so I think that's the first thing I would say, is that, try to keep my chin above the little talking bubble. There we go. Is that you need to keep your, focus on those real solutions to that. But I mean, practically speaking, there are great examples of companies like, I think Kodak's probably one of the most legendary examples of this, of legendary failures, where they built, their business started by saying, we exist to help everyday people capture exciting and memorable moments in their life. And at the time when Kodak started, that was a crazy idea, because normally you had to go pay an arm and a leg and go to some guy with a box where you stood and you in your pose, and then smoke shot out of the thing and you got one photo, right? Like that was photography when Kodak launched. And they said, we're going to take photography into the home. And everyone's like, you're crazy. But they did it, right? So they made it that everyday people could take pictures of their family and capture these special moments, which we take for granted today. Well, somebody who worked at Kodak along the way invented this thing, and he brought it to their board and he said, I've invented this new technology working on our team where we can take unlimited photos from one camera. It's called the digital camera. You can take unlimited photos. It can store it on this little device. People can go from taking, like 30 to 50 photos per roll of film to hundreds or thousands of photos. And Kodak said, are you nuts? We're in the business of selling film. Put that in a box and don't tell anyone about it. And Kodak locked the digital camera technology away, and somebody else also invented the digital camera and put Kodak out of business. I mean, they're a shadow of what they once were. They could have dominated the change in technology. The reason why they failed is because they forgot that their business was not selling film and cameras. Their business was helping everyday people capture exciting moments and memorable moments in their family life. And because they forgot that, they lost billions of dollars, and they still haven't recovered.
They became the Radio Shack. They became the Radio Shack of
yep. Or the Blockbuster. There's so many stories like this,
Absolutely. Netflix put a lot of businesses, the rental market, the video game rental market has changed. All of it has changed, and because they lacked the vision, they lacked the insight to to follow through.
Blockbuster had an opportunity to buy Netflix when Netflix was just starting, and they had just gotten some initial success. And Blockbuster, they kind of laughed at it. They were like, what are you talking about? No one's going to get movies in their mail at their home. They're going to go to the video store. We're in the business of selling videos at a store. But they were never in the business of selling videos at a store. Blockbuster was in the business of giving families entertainment at home. The store was just kind of like today's delivery mechanism. And because Blockbuster forgot that the business is built on creating real solutions to real problems for real people, and they thought business was about selling products, therefore they went out of business.
Yeah. People like convenience. People like, if you can make it more convenient for me to get this same product at the same value, if you can make that easier and simpler, then that's where you win. Darn you, Apple.
No.
So I'm gonna put that out there.
I'm not Android either. This is called the Light phone. This is what I use.
What in the world is
Yeah.
that?
It's the size of a credit card. It does calls and texts. So talk about the question earlier about how I achieve balance. That's another piece of it. That's that when I'm not at my computer, I'm not at work.
So you removed all the notifications. You removed all the attacks, right?
Yep.
Of information that I was trying to
Yeah. So, and my family and friends can still reach me. Like right now, that little asterisk next to the 9 says that I've got a notification. So somebody's probably texted me or something like that while we're on this conversation. But it's literally just like, it's called the Light phone. And a lot of people love this because it's a way to disconnect. There's no browser. There's no, like literally it's just a scroll of contacts. You can tell I've got a text from my friend Neil and a group text with my Cowork.Inc partners right there at the top. And so that's it. It's like you've got texts and calls. It's got a directions tool. They don't call it an app, but it's got a directions tool so I can get directions, places, alarm. It does have a podcast feed, but I have to actually go on to the web on my computer and pick which podcast I'm subscribed to, and then they're delivered to my phone. There's no browser on here. There's no social media on here. There's no calendar. And so that's a huge part of what helps me be present when I'm not at my desk.
I need one.
Yes.
You sold me. I need one. Oh my gosh. What products? So since we're talking about products, you brought it up. What products, you talk about this in the book too. What 3 products do you recommend every business offer
sure.
in order to thrive?
Yeah. So first of all, I think it's important to recognize that you don't have to have dozens or hundreds or thousands of products. That's the first thing I would say is just like take a deep breath. You need 3 products to succeed. Just 3. Can you create 3 products? I think you can. And specifically which products I teach in detail in the book, but I can summarize them here, which is the first one is that you need a gateway product. Now, a gateway product, you could think of this like, there's a lot of terms for this. There's like the tripwire or the loss leader. But the idea is the gateway product is a painless purchase that allows someone to become a customer very easily. Because the first time someone's looking at your business and hearing about your business, they have hope and they're thinking, man, I hope that you can solve my problems. I hope that you can help me. I hope that you can make my life better. But they're also a little bit skeptical. They're saying like, well, you want my money and I like my money. And so I'm a little nervous to give it to you. And so if you can then make it as easy as possible for someone to give you just a little bit of money and for you to blow their expectations out of the water with that gateway product, then you've got a raving fan. You've got a customer that's happy to buy your other products or services. So the gateway product is actually not designed to make you a ton of money. It's designed to be something that just gets someone in the door, essentially, of your business. So that's one product that you need. The other product that you need is your flagship product. Now, this is the big kahuna, the epitome of everything you offer, the most expensive product or service you offer probably, but more importantly, it's the full transformation. This is the full experience. And the flagship product is important for several reasons. One of them is that it actually communicates to your followers, whether or not they're customers. It gives them a vision of what to aspire to, and it tells them what you stand for, right? Because if you're like a fitness coach, for example, and your flagship program is like a rock hard abs boot camp, just to pick a very cliche example, then that's what everyone else knows. Even if they buy your little $5 ebook, they know the goal is rock hard abs boot camp. That's like the dream, and so because of that, it gives people something to aspire to. Over 90% of your customers will never purchase your flagship product if it's priced right. But that means the people that do buy it are going to be generating a huge percentage of or a huge amount of revenue in your business just because it's such a higher price point. It might be something where like your little gateway product might be $5 or $10 and your flagship product might be $5,000 or $10,000. And those prices definitely change based on what industry you're in and who your customers are and how much they're willing to spend. In some industries, your flagship product might be $100,000 or more. But the third is your continuity product. That's the third type of product that you need. A continuity product, also known as a subscription product. But the idea here is this is the glue that keeps someone in your business between purchases. What John Warlow calls the automatic customer. And so a continuity product, this could be a subscription service, much like Marcus mentioned earlier, where he has that option where you can subscribe to support his work here. That's a continuity product. But it could be instead that you have a coaching service that's a retainer or some sort of like coaching group that people are paying to get access to on a regular basis. It could be that you have a software company or a software product that's available on a subscription basis. But what I've seen, what I believe is true, is that if you have those 3 products, you've tapped into the most profitable ways to serve your audience and your customers. And you can create other products, but those are the three that really are going to give you the biggest bang for their buck.
Powerful. So that makes sense. So you break this down in the book, and how did you come across these three items? How did you realize? Was it in your own business, or was it in the consultation when you researched and you talked to other businesses owners? How did you discover these three?
I mean, both. It's kind of both. I mean, like I've used the strategy myself with clients and with my own business and seen the success there. Now, where I can go to a client when I come in and they say, okay, we're looking for the biggest opportunity to generate revenue, and I'll just look pretty quickly. I'm like, okay, can you give me a list of all your products and their price points? And immediately I can say, oh, you're missing the gateway product, or oh, you're missing the flagship product, or oh, you're missing the continuity product. And usually businesses have at least one of these, sometimes two. But it's rare that you find someone that has all three. And when you add that third one in the mix, they all work together and you see dramatic results. So I've done this with clients. I've done this in my own businesses. And I will say that the themes came out when I was interviewing all these experts as well, of just like, sometimes some of the experts I was interviewing were driving home on like, you need a subscription product. And that was kind of like their main thesis. And sometimes people were saying, you need a flagship product. And that was like their main thesis. And sometimes people were saying, oh man, this gateway product idea. And they weren't calling it that. I came up with that terminology as far as I know. I'm sure other people have used it, but they were calling it other things. But the idea is like, you need this like cheap product to get someone in the door, because here's the other thing. Research shows that once someone becomes a customer and purchases one product from you, they are 5 times more likely to purchase a second product than someone who's purchased nothing. In other words, if you're trying to sell like $100 program, and you've got 2 potential customers, one of them has never bought anything from you, one of them has bought a $10 book from you, and you're trying to sell a $100 program, the person who bought the $10 book from you is 5 times more likely to actually make the purchase. So that's a reason why gateway products are so powerful.
Can you give us a quick example of what's a gateway product, what's a flagship product in a business, and can you give us an example of a continuity product in all three?
Sure. Actually, so the book, this is probably risky, but I'll say it because we're talking about style, right? Gentleman style. But the example that I give in the book is actually I walk through the business model of a women's boutique. If I owned a women's boutique, which I don't, and everyone should thank me for that, then what would that look like? And the example I give is that your gateway product could be something as simple as like a really classy, comfortable pair of shoes that you can wear with almost any professional outfit. Like comfortable, classy, and something that you could put at the front of your store. So the minute someone walks into your store, they've never been there and they're looking around and they're like right in the front is like you call it, you could just call it, the classic shoe, every woman needs or whatever. And, and it could be, I in the book I mentioned, I was like, maybe it's $10 or $20. And then I Googled how much women's shoes cost and realized that this is why I don't run a women's boutique. But the theory holds true, which is that maybe it's $40 or $50, but that becomes clear. That's the gateway product. So the first time someone comes in, you just made it really clear the way you position that online or in person that like, hey, if you're not sure where to start, this is where you should start. And if someone does buy that, they begin to trust you. They go, wow, this is comfortable. Plus, it's a really classy pair of shoes, and it looks good with almost any outfit. Now, then maybe the flagship product that I came up with in the book was the idea. This specific women's boutique we could talk about in the book, has a target customer base of serving women in the professional workspace. And so specifically, they created a flagship product called the Working Women's Wardrobe, where they'll have you come in for a 3-hour session. And I don't remember the price point we came up with in the book, but let's just call it $3,000 to $5,000. So let's just call it $3,000. Well, I'll call it $5,000 for this conversation. But for the Working Woman's Wardrobe, you come in and you get 3 hours working with a stylist to help you pick out and design a capsule wardrobe of outfits that actually help you feel confident and to feel confident and comfortable in the professional workspace. And these are all different outfits that work together. And you got to work with a professional stylist to pick them all out. And by the way, the $5,000 includes the clothes too, And so then that's an amazing flagship product when you think about the target customer. The continuity product in that example is a wardrobe refresh, is a seasonal wardrobe refresh. So once every quarter, they come in and for $1,000 fee can work with a stylist for an hour to take the exact same wardrobe and figure out, okay, you know what? It's summer. Let's actually, let's swap this sweater out for a different blouse and really just updating the wardrobe once a quarter to make sure that it's or I guess once a season, I speak in business terms, but once a season to make sure that it's updated for the weather. So that, I mean, like that's 3 right there, just as examples.
John Meese, y'all. Don't go anywhere. We have one more quick commercial break. You guys stay tuned. Stay with us. We'll be right back. We got to pay some bills, y'all. Our show sponsors coming up next.
If you're looking for a reliable, professional trucking and logistics service, you've come to the right place. Meese Trucking is a veteran-owned and operated premier transportation provider that can help with all of your trucking and logistics needs. Meese is revolutionizing the trucking industry through strategic partnerships, the development of core personnel, and the use of cutting-edge technology. Our inventory system ensures that cargo ends up divided into the right trucks and reaching the correct destination. Our drivers are dedicated to transporting goods efficiently and safely. Contact us today to get started by visiting the website on the screen or by calling 757-756-5246.
We are back. Welcome to Gentleman Style Podcast Show. We have Mr. John Meese breaking down the tea, spilling all the tea. We can't spill all the tea, right? You got to get a copy of his book. That's just nature of the business, right? What's it? Your flagship product? Did I get it right?
This is actually my gateway product.
Your gateway product to get more of him. I should have known that. I'm learning. See,
It's trying. Okay. It's good. Yeah.
Mr. John Meese, y'all. I want to touch on this last point in the book. This book is powerful. It's called The Entrepreneur's Paradox. What is the Entrepreneur's Paradox? And I feel like this is the Economist coming out. What is the Entrepreneur's Paradox? And please expound on this thought process, because I think my audience needs to hear this. We all need to hear this.
Yes. So what the Entrepreneur's Paradox is, and by the way, if it's been a while since you've maybe thought about what is a paradox, it's something that sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. It's 2 things that sound contrary, but they're both true. And so the Entrepreneur's Paradox is the fact that entrepreneurs entrepreneurs get paid, but they don't work for money. And this comes back to the whole idea of serving people through your business. You know, the whole idea that your business is built on creating real solutions to real problems for real people. It's the fact that, yes, to be a successful entrepreneur, you need to get paid. But the best entrepreneurs that are the most successful, they don't stress about, I mean, of course, you've got to have a plan. You got to be strategic. But their focus is not just on how much money can I get. It's on how can I serve my customer better, and in what other ways can I serve them? And yes, that's going to generate revenue for the business. Personally, me, John Meese, I view profit as a scorecard for how well I've served humanity. So when I look at our profit at the end of a month or a quarter or a year of how much money we've made in the business, I think, all right, got to get out there, and I want to, that's great. That's a good scorecard, but there's more. And I don't think it's a matter of greediness for more profit in business. For me, it's a measure of that's my scorecard for how well I've served humanity, because profit includes a metric of not just measuring, it measures a few things: how effective you were at solving someone's problem, how efficient you are at managing your time and money to do it, and how enjoyable your work is, because the only way you can sustain your business over the long run is if you actually enjoy the work you do.
That makes sense. Mr. Meese, this has been impactful and powerful, and I appreciate you taking the time to break that down. Sir, how can my audience connect with you? How can we grow with you? How can we learn more and get past that gateway and get to the continuity part?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say is that if you go to surviveandthrivebook.com, get a copy of the book. It's a painless purchase, right? So as a gateway product, it's designed to be super cheap. So I don't really make a lot of money off the book. That's fine. I want you to put this into practice, and I want it to be valuable to you. And there's no reason why you couldn't apply the principles of this book to generate thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in your business. There's no reason why you couldn't do that. And the book itself costs, less than $20. So it's a pretty good deal. I think so. There are also some free resources on that page where you can download a fill in the blank playbook that goes along with the book. And then I also have a Thrive Score assessment you can take there to assess your current business, get a numerical score for how well you're doing. So I would say Survive and Thrive Book is the best place to go. You can find links there to where you can also find me on things like LinkedIn. But go to surviveandthrivebook.com and start there.
Love it. Connect with him, y'all. We gotta get to better business. Mr. Meese, I want to say thank you, sir. This has been epic, and this has been powerful and very, very informational. And I thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to give back in this way. I want to say this to you publicly, sir. Don't give up. We need you.
Thank you. That's my pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. If I could add one thing I should have mentioned too is that this has been phenomenal. Thank you for having me on as a guest. It's been a lot of fun. If you know, and if anybody listening to this, like if you like conversations like this, and maybe you're not ready to buy the book, that's okay. You know, it's just subscribe to. I've got my own podcast, the Thrive School Podcast, and I think you'll enjoy it. I don't have quite as many sound effects or really cool special effects as Marcus, but I have some incredible guests on there too.
Absolutely. Plug, connect. That's what it's about. It's connecting and growing. And thank you for the compliment, sir. I hope this message has served you all. I hope this information has been impactful to you all. And I pray that this changes your life in some small way, changes your business in some small way. Like I end every show, take care of your friends, take care of your family, and always take care of business. This is Marcus Norman of Gentleman Style Podcast Show, your host, and Mr. John Meese, Survive and Thrive. So let's do it, y'all. Love you guys. Bye.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.